The sky's looking angrier than a toddler denied a cookie, I tell Hank. He's here about the fence. Again. We're standing in my driveway, the air thick and sticky, and Hank's trying to convince me that cedar is worth the extra kidney I'd have to sell. It's an investment, Mike. Think of the longevity. I'm thinking of my wallet's current life expectancy, Hank, I counter. That's when the first fat raindrop splats onto his meticulously detailed quote, making the ink for premium gate hardware run a little. My phone buzzes in my pocket, a shrill, annoying tone I'd set for emergency alerts and promptly forgotten about. Flash flood warning. Tualatin River and Tri-County area. Seek higher ground. Huh, I say, showing Hank the alert. Wonder if I should move the Negotiator to higher ground. The Negotiator is my jet ski. My wife, bless her patient soul, calls it your midlife crisis on water. I call it essential emergency equipment. It's a joke between us. Mostly. Hank just grunts, pulling his baseball cap lower. Looks like this cedar discussion might have to wait, Mike. That ain't drizzle. He wasn't wrong. It was like someone up there suddenly remembered they'd left the celestial taps on full blast. Brenda, our illustrious HOA president, had it out for me ever since the Great Flamingo Uprising of '22. That was when my kids thought it would be hilarious to decorate every lawn on the street with 24 plastic flamingos. Brenda's ensuing email diatribe about unauthorized recreational vehicles and decorative avian effigies being visible from the street was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive fury. She actually measured the distance from the curb to my garage door once, clipboard in hand, to see if the nose of my fishing boat was technically in public view. The woman has issues. The rain picks up, going from annoying to are we building an ark yet? Territory in about 60 seconds. That escalated quickly, I mutter, watching the gutter overflow and send a cascade of water down the driveway. My phone rings again, and it's not an alert this time. Sarah Peterson. Her voice is tight, stretched thin with panic. Mike! The water! It's in the house! It's coming up so fast! Dave's trying to move stuff to the second floor, but Lily's terrified. I can hear one of the kids, probably Lily, wailing like a tiny banshee in the background. The Petersons live at the bottom of our cul-de-sac, the natural collection point for, well, everything. Okay, Sarah, stay calm. You hear me? Get to the highest point in the house. Attic, second floor, whatever. Just go up. We are. But the street, Mike, it's a river. I walk to the end of my driveway. She's not exaggerating. What was our quiet suburban street 30 minutes ago is now a fast-moving, muddy torrent. The storm drain at the end, the one Brenda complained was unsightly and tried to get the city to camouflage with a tasteful shrubbery installation, is utterly overwhelmed. The Petersons' front yard is a churning brown lake. Their porch, usually adorned with seasonal welcome signs, is an island, and the tide is visibly, terrifyingly coming in fast. Their car, parked in their driveway, is already submerged past its hubcaps. Hank, I say, my voice a little grim. I think your fence quote is officially on hold. Indefinitely. Hank just whistles, low and long. Yeah, Mike, I think you got bigger fish to fry. Or float. I'm pulling on my ancient, patched-up waders, the ones I use for fishing, when Brenda makes her grand entrance. She marches into view like a five-star general inspecting the troops, if the troops were bewildered suburbanites, and the battlefield was rapidly becoming an aquatic zone. She's got on a blindingly neon yellow poncho that makes her look like a giant, angry lemon. A whistle is clenched between her teeth, and in her hand, oh God, in her hand is a laminated copy of the HOA Emergency Preparedness Plan. I'm 99% sure she wrote it herself, and I'd bet my left foot it involves a lot of forming an orderly queue, and submitting emergency requisition forms in triplicate. "Michael!" she bellows, or rather, tries to bellow. The whistle makes it come out as more of a shrill, "Mifail!" She yanks the whistle out. As per HOA Directive 7, Paragraph 4, all residents are to remain indoors and await official instruction. You are not to approach the flooded zone. You are creating an unauthorized ripple. "Brenda," I say, trying to keep my voice even, because arguing with Brenda is like wrestling a pig in mud. Sooner or later you realize the pig is enjoying it. Their house is flooding. They've got kids in there, for crying out loud. This isn't about your damn regulations. That's when I see it. My stomach clenches. The Petersons' front gate, it's one of those heavy wrought iron, look at us, we're secure type gates, has a brand new, brutally industrial-looking chain and padlock looped through the bars. My jaw literally drops. Dave Peterson's face appears at an upstairs window, pale and strained. He shouts, his voice cracking against the roar of the rain and rushing water. "She locked us in, Mike! Brenda! She actually locked the bloody gate!" Brenda, bless her tyrannical heart, puffs up. She actually looks proud. "The area has been secured to prevent unauthorized entry or exit, ensuring resident safety until emergency services arrive," she declares, her voice ringing with the misplaced authority of a parking attendant drunk on power. "It's procedure." "Procedure?" I splutter, incredulous. "Brenda, you've trapped them. That's not safety, that's something they do in those bad disaster movies right before the zombies get everyone. Are you insane?" The full weight of HOA Karen locked flooded neighbors in hits me. This isn't just Brenda being her usual officious self. This is next-level dangerous. I storm back to my garage, water sloshing around my ankles even on my slightly higher ground. I'm seething, my hands clenched. Hank's just standing there, leaning against his truck, mouth slightly agape, the forgotten fence quote dangling from his fingers. Did she just actually imprison them with a master lock and a length of chain from, like, a haunted shipyard? "Pretty much, Hank, she's finally snapped. Gone full Captain Queeg with a laminated rule book." My eyes land on the negotiator. It's big, it's loud, it floats. And suddenly, a terrible, wonderful, probably highly illegal idea starts to bloom in my head like a particularly rebellious weed. Brenda mentioned emergency services. I mutter, more to myself than to Hank. "How long you reckon that'll take in this mess? An hour? 2? The water's already halfway up their porch." I can picture Lily and Tom, scared and small, watching that brown water creep closer. I look at my watch. The cheap digital one I wear for yard work. The seconds tick by with an almost audible mockery. "Okay, Brenda," I say softly, a cold sort of calm settling over me. "You've got exactly 4 minutes of my patience for your official channels to magically appear with a flotilla of rescue boats and a sensible plan. After that..." I trail off, already yanking the tarp off the negotiator. Hank raises an eyebrow. "After that, Mike?" "After that, Hank," I say, feeling a grin I probably shouldn't be feeling stretch across my face. "After that, the negotiator is going to live up to its name. And Brenda's not going to like the terms." The countdown had begun. Not on my watch, but in my head. 4 minutes until I became the unofficial, unapproved, and probably uninsured rescue service of Oak Haven cul-de-sac. "You're not serious," Hank says, but the bewilderment in his eyes is now mixed with a definite sparkle of something that looks suspiciously like admiration. Or maybe he just wants to see if I'll actually go through with it. "Deadly serious, Hank. Grab that end, will you?" We're wrestling the negotiator off its trailer. It's about as graceful as a hippo on a unicycle, especially with the wind whipping the rain into our faces. The driveway is already a shallow stream. Brenda spots us. Of course she does. Her eyes, even from 50 yards away, seem to possess a predatory focus when it comes to perceived infractions. Her whistle screeches, a sound I'm convinced could curdle milk. "Michael, I am warning you. Cease and desist. That is an unapproved watercraft in a non-designated recreational area. I am calling the authorities." I cup my hands around my mouth. "It's a rescue vehicle now, Brenda. Adapt or get out of the way and tell the authorities to bring a bigger boat and maybe a psychiatrist for you." The engine sputters once, twice, then catches with a throaty roar that is music to my ears and, I imagine, sheer agony to Brenda's. "Sorry, petunias," I shout to no one in particular as I steer the negotiator carefully off the edge of my driveway and into what used to be Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning azaleas, now a submerged green blob. The initial launch is bumpy. The water isn't quite deep enough here, and I scrape the bottom once or twice, but then I hit the main flow in the street, and the negotiator lifts, suddenly alive under me. It's surreal. I'm riding a jet ski down my suburban street. Mailboxes stick out of the water like sad metal snorkels. A couple of garden gnomes look like they're about to be swept away on an epic voyage. The negotiator throws up a decent wake, much to the surprise of a floating recycling bin that bobs violently in my passage. I can see Dave and Sarah at the upstairs window of their house, their faces a mixture of disbelief and dawning hope. Lily and Tom's small faces are pressed to the glass, wide-eyed and unblinking. "How we doing, folks?" I shout as I pull up as close as I can to their rapidly shrinking island of a porch. The water is halfway up their front door now, muddy and swirling with debris leaves, branches, someone's lost garden hose. Dave's voice is hoarse. "Better now we've seen you, you magnificent, certifiable lunatic. The gate, Mike. We can't get past the damn gate. She chained it up good and tight." I can see the chain. It's heavy duty, all right. Brenda didn't skimp. No way I'm breaking that with my bare hands, and the negotiator, for all its charms, isn't equipped with grappling hooks or laser cutters. "Okay, new plan," I yell over the engine and the storm. "Can you get to the back of the house? Is there a window on the first floor, maybe the kitchen or bathroom, that I can get this thing close to?" "The bathroom window," Sarah shouts back. "It's small, but maybe—" Just as I'm about to try and maneuver around the side of their house, dodging a floating plastic lawn chair, I hear them. Sirens. Of course, because this situation just wasn't chaotic enough. A big police SUV, its lights strobing blue and red, making the rain-streaked street look like a disco from hell, pulls up at the edge of the deeper water, a good 100 feet away. Officers Miller and Davies get out, their expressions carefully neutral as they survey the scene. One flooded cul-de-sac, one irate HOA president, and one idiot, that'd be me, on a jet ski. Brenda is on them like a fly on, well, something a fly likes. She's pointing dramatically at me, her voice rising in pitch and indignation. "Officers, arrest that man. He's violating at least 17 HOA bylaws, including but not limited to Section 5, subsection C, regarding noise pollution from unauthorized engine-powered vehicles. He's creating a public nuisance. He's endangering himself and others. And he's operating a marine vehicle without a permit in a clearly non-navigable residential zone." She actually seems to be consulting her laminated plan for that last part. Officer Miller, a man whose face seems permanently etched with the weariness of 1,000 petty disputes, sighs so heavily I think I can see it even from this distance. The rain drips off the brim of his hat. "Ma'am, with all due respect, we've got a bit of a situation here that's just a tad bigger than mailbox regulations, sir," he calls out to me, his voice surprisingly carrying over the din. "What in the Sam Hill is going on here?" "Just a little unscheduled water sport, officer," I yell back, trying to keep the negotiator steady against the current. Trying to get my neighbors out before they need snorkels in their lounge. This lady, I jerk my thumb towards Brenda, decided to play warden and lock them in their house. Dave, bless his panicked heart, confirms it from the upstairs window. He's helping us, officer. It's true, that woman. He points a shaky finger at Brenda. She locked our gate. We're trapped in here with the water rising. Officer Miller looks at the chained gate. Then he looks at Brenda, who is now sputtering about necessary precautions and maintaining the integrity of the emergency perimeter. Officer Davies, the younger of the two, discreetly hides a smirk behind his hand. I think I might have an ally there. Just then, Hank, my contractor, my bewildered, unwilling accomplice in all this, wades out from my driveway. He's got that look on his face, the one that says, I should have just stayed in bed this morning. He ambles over to Officer Davies, the rain plastering his thin hair to his scalp. Officer? Hank says, his voice surprisingly calm in the middle of this circus. Not to tell you your job or nothing, but I got a pair of industrial-grade bolt cutters in my truck, back at the top of the street. Just saying. For, you know, emergency fence repairs and such. He gives a slow, deliberate wink that's so out of character, it's almost majestic. Davies glances at Miller. Miller looks like he's rapidly aging, contemplating a career change to something less wet. Maybe lighthouse keeping. This is all highly irregular, Miller mutters, mostly to himself. Guys, I shout, having finally managed to get the negotiator positioned somewhat precariously beneath a small, high window on the side of the Petersons' house, probably the bathroom Sarah mentioned. A little less talk about irregularity and a little more action on that darn gate would be fantastic. The water's still coming up, and my co-pilot here, I gesture to the empty seat behind me, is getting impatient. Davies doesn't even look at Miller this time. He just nods curtly at Hank. Well, civilian assistance in an emergency isn't entirely unheard of, Mr. Hank, says Hank. Mr. Hank, just be careful. And, try not to make too much of a mess of that gate. Technically, it's HOA property. He says it with a completely straight face, but I see the twinkle in his eye. Brenda lets out a sound like a deflating bagpipe. You can't! That's destruction of procedural integrity. Getting Lily and Tom out through that tiny, slick bathroom window and onto the back of a bucking, unstable jet ski is an exercise in controlled panic. Lily, all of 8 years old, is crying, not loudly, but with that silent, shoulder-shaking terror that rips your heart out. Tom, who's 6, is eerily quiet, his eyes like saucers, just staring at the brown water swirling inches below his dangling feet as Dave carefully lowers him down to me. Okay, Lilypad, I say, trying to channel my inner, calming kids down in a crisis guy, which is a guy I didn't even know existed until about 10 minutes ago. You're gonna be a jet ski princess, okay? Just for a little bit. Hold on tight to me like I'm a giant waterproof teddy bear. I managed to get a too big life vest on her that I'd thankfully stashed in the negotiator's storage compartment. For Tom, I try a different tack. All right, buddy, you're my co-pilot. You see any sharks? You let me know, okay? He just nods, his little hands gripping my jacket like grim death. There are no sharks, I sincerely hope. I make 2 trips, each one a slow, nerve-wracking crawl through the debris-filled water, depositing one soaked, shivering, but blessedly safe kid with Hank on my porch, which is now serving as the official evacuation welcome center. Other neighbors, drawn by the commotion, and probably Brenda's non-stop whistling, are starting to appear, offering towels and shocked expressions. Each trip past Brenda, who is now stationed like a furious, damp gargoyle near the end of my driveway, involves a fresh volley of megaphone-enhanced threats. He's not using regulation child flotation devices. Those are not Coast Guard approved for minors in this weight category, she shrieks as I ferry Tom past. Officer Miller, to his eternal credit, finally seems to have had enough. "Ma'am," he barks, his voice cutting through her tirade. "He's pulling them from a house that is actively taking on water. I think we can cut him some slack on the specific brand of life jacket he's using, don't you? Or would you prefer he left them in there until someone with the correct paperwork arrived?" Brenda actually shuts up. For about 3 seconds. It's a new record. Back for Sarah. She's at the bathroom window now, her face streaked with rain and tears. "Mike, I don't know how to thank you. I was so scared." "Get on the jet ski, Sarah," I say, trying to sound more confident than I feel. The Negotiator is not designed for graceful passenger boarding, especially from a window ledge 3 feet above the water. We'll talk about it over non-flood contaminated coffee later, and maybe a very large brandy. It takes some doing, a lot of awkward maneuvering, and one moment where I'm pretty sure we're both going into the drink, but she's on. Then, finally, Dave. He's a bigger guy, and the water is noticeably higher now, lapping at the windowsill he's climbing out of. As he's swinging a leg over the back of the Negotiator, there's a sudden sickening crunch and a roar of water. A huge section of their wooden privacy fence, undermined by the flood, finally gives way and slams into the side of their house with the force of a runaway truck, missing us by what feels like inches. We both stare, hearts hammering. "Okay," Dave says, his voice a little shaky as he settles behind me. "Let's get out of Dodge before the whole house decides to go for a swim." My porch is a scene. The kids, Lily and Tom, are wrapped in thick blankets someone produced, sipping something hot from a thermos. Sarah is already there, fussing over them, her earlier panic replaced by a fierce, protective energy. When Dave steps onto the porch, soaked and shivering but safe, the reunion is emotional. Lots of hugs. Lots of oh my gods. Even a few neighbors I barely know are dabbing their eyes. It's amazing how a near-drowning experience can bring a cul-de-sac together. While I was playing water taxi, Hank, under the quietly approving eye of Officer Davies, has been waging his own war against Brenda's chain of oppression. Sparks fly from the heavy-duty bolt cutters. The man clearly believes in buying quality tools. He's grunting with effort, his face set in a grim line of determination. "This is surprisingly therapeutic," Hank gasps out between exertions, and then, with a final satisfying snap, the thick chain falls away. The heavy wrought iron gate groans open, pushed by the current. Brenda is practically vibrating with rage. Her phone is out, held aloft like a tiny rectangular weapon, and I'm pretty sure she's live-streaming this entire wanton act of vandalism to the HOA emergency Facebook page, which I didn't even know was a thing. "Vandalism, destruction of HOA property. You'll all be hearing from our lawyers. This is an outrage." Officer Miller, who has been watching the gate opening procedure with an air of profound resignation, walks slowly over to the now open gateway. He looks at the severed chain, then at Brenda. "Well, ma'am," he says, his voice dry as a desert. "The obstruction has been cleared." Funny, it looks much safer and more accessible for any actual emergency services now, doesn't it? His tone is mild, but there's an underlying edge of steel that wasn't there before. Right on cue, the official fire and rescue boat, a sturdy-looking inflatable, finally chugs into view around the bend. It looks almost comically late to the party, like showing up for a gunfight with a water pistol after the dust has settled. The fire captain, a no-nonsense woman with a stern face and seen-it-all-twice eyes, takes in the scene. The Petersons huddled on my porch, the open gate, me dripping next to my jet ski, and Brenda looking like she's about to spontaneously combust. "Looks like you had it handled, Officer Miller," the fire captain says, her gaze lingering on the Negotiator with something that might be professional curiosity or just sheer disbelief. "Good civilian response," She even gives me a curt nod. I'll take it. Dave Peterson, though still dripping and looking like he's been through a ringer, is now fueled by a potent cocktail of relief and righteous indignation. He marches right up to Brenda, who is still sputtering about property damage and legal repercussions. Several other neighbors have emerged from their houses, drawn by the receding waters and the ongoing drama. Phones are out. Oh yes, phones are definitely out, and recording. "Are you out of your mind, Brenda?" Dave demands, his voice loud enough to carry over the diminishing gurgle of the floodwaters. "You locked my children, my family, in a flooding house. For what? For your pathetic little power trip for some stupid line in your stupid rulebook?" Sarah is right behind him, her arm around Lily. "My daughter was terrified, Brenda. My son wouldn't speak. Because of you. Because you thought a padlock was more important than their lives." Brenda, bless her cotton socks, tries to wave her laminated plan like a shield. "I was following established protocols. It was an emergency containment measure to ensure orderly assessment." Her voice falters under the combined glare of angry parents, disapproving emergency personnel, and a growing audience of smartphone-wielding neighbors. The phrase "going viral" springs unbidden to my mind. Officer Davies, who had been quietly conferring with Officer Miller, steps forward. The hint of amusement is gone from his face now. It's all business. "Ma'am," he says, his voice polite but firm. "While your dedication to the Homeowners Association is noted, your actions today appear to have actively hindered a rescue operation and potentially endangered residents. We're going to need you to come down to the station to give a full statement regarding your decisions." He pauses, then adds, his eyes flicking towards the still furious Petersons. "And I believe these good people might want to discuss the legal definitions of terms like reckless endangerment and perhaps even false imprisonment with some legal counsel of their own." The color drains from Brenda's face. Her jaw, which had been working furiously, goes slack. The ever-present clipboard slips from her nerveless fingers and lands with a damp thud in the muddy grass. Her bright yellow poncho suddenly looks less like a symbol of authority and more like a surrender flag. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight. I wouldn't say I smiled, but I might have. Just a little. Internally. Hours later, the water has mostly receded, leaving behind a thick, stinking layer of mud, uprooted plants, and general suburban chaos. My driveway is a disaster zone. The negotiator is parked, looking a bit battered but triumphant, next to my long-suffering minivan. "So, about that fence, Hank," I begin, as he stands there surveying the mud-caked devastation that is now my front yard. He lets out a long, slow breath and shakes his head. "Mike, I think I just became the official post-flood reconstruction and general debris hauling contractor for the entire Oak Haven cul-de-sac. My estimate for your fence, it just tripled." He cracks a grin. "And I'm adding a hefty line item for hazard pay due to extreme HOA-induced stress and involuntary deputization as Marine ground crew, to your bill specifically." "Fair enough," I concede. There's a strange sort of energy in the air. Neighbors are out, not just staring, but doing. Dragging ruined carpets to the curb, checking on each other, sharing stories of where the water peaked in their living rooms. Someone hands me a beer. It's warm, probably looted from a floating cooler, but it tastes like victory. The shared ordeal, the common enemy, both the flood and, let's be honest, Brenda, it's forged something new. A weird, muddy, slightly stunned sense of community. My phone hasn't stopped buzzing, vibrating itself halfway across the kitchen counter where I'd left it. My wife, Jen, picks it up, her eyebrows climbing her forehead. "Mike," she says, a mixture of amusement and exasperation in her voice. "You might want to see this." She shows me the screen, It's a local news Facebook page. There's a video, clearly filmed by one of my neighbors. The quality is shaky. The sound is mostly wind and Brenda's shrieking, but the visuals are unmistakable. Me on the negotiator, looking like a drenched but determined suburban Viking, with a small, terrified child clinging to my back, plowing through the flooded street. The title is something like, "Local Dad's Epic Jet Ski Rescue. HOA tries to stop him." It has, apparently, several thousand views and climbing. The comments section is a gold mine. #JetSkiMike, #HOA lockdown, #FloodHero, #negotiate this Brenda. Lily and Tom Peterson, now dry and remarkably cheerful, had presented me with a crayon drawing before their parents took them home. It depicts a surprisingly accurate, if somewhat lopsided rendition of me on the negotiator. I have a superhero cape. Nice touch. And I'm shooting water from the jet ski's nozzle directly at a very angry-looking stick figure wearing a bright yellow triangle and wielding a giant whistle. Underneath, in wobbly letters, it says, "Thank you, Jet Ski Mike, you saved us." Jen says she's framing it. "You know," I say to Jen later that evening, as we're surveying the muddy boot prints on our own, thankfully dry, living room carpet. The kids are asleep. The adrenaline is finally worn off, leaving me feeling like I've been run over by a flood. I think I'm going to need a bigger garage for the negotiator's inevitable upgrades. And maybe a moat, a really big one. You know, just to keep Brenda at a comfortable, non-litigious distance. Jen just laughs. That warm, familiar sound that always makes things feel a little more normal. "Just try not to make the 6 o'clock news next time, okay, Jet Ski Mike?" she says, kissing my cheek. "This cul-de-sac might not survive another one of your rescue missions." I just grin, a tired, aching, but deeply satisfied grin. No promises there. After all, the negotiator might just have to be called upon to negotiate some new, more sensible HOA bylaws. And I have a feeling Brenda's reign as the laminated queen of Oakhaven is about to hit some seriously choppy water.